today, which is really, we've been giving lots of ideas around building personal resilience, but we haven't really taken a deeper dive into the real struggles that we might be facing. You know, Phil, you were very graciously shared quite a personal experience of what you were going through last time, and you vulnerably showed some emotion. And a few of you have mentioned to me, and it's strange how it also came up in a dream for me during the week. You know, the whole thing of giving due attention and respect to the struggle itself, rather than trying to quickly snap out of it and say, okay, now power of positive thinking, mantras, meditation, running, doing all these things to try and snap ourselves out of it. And I think we just sensed in our conversations, and what happened in a dream with me as well, that the real learning, real diamonds in the dust happens when you're actually allowing yourself to go down that hole for a moment and to acknowledge and respect what it is that you're experiencing, having respect for your own experience, and an awareness and an acceptance of what you're going through. I remember a time in my life when I was in another relationship. This is before I married Fritz, and I had to make a decision. I was in a 7-year relationship, and it was a very, very beautiful relationship. It was a good friendship, but it was going nowhere. It was just not growing. And I had to make a very tough choice to leave that relationship. And there were 3 kids involved, that I kind of inherited. And I remember a friend of mine, I was totally confused, and I was so depressed and struggling with guilt about making this decision. And I remember a psychologist friend of ours, I said to him, I'm so confused, I'm so stressed about this, I'm not eating well, and I'm waking up in the middle of the night. And so what I've done, I said to him, is I've set myself a goal that by the 30th of June, I must be out of this. I must make a decision. By the 30th of June, I've got to go one way or the other. And I put all this pressure on myself. And he said to me, wisest words I'd heard in a while, he said to me, why don't you make a conscious choice to be confused and to allow the confusion for a moment, for a few months, and just see what happens when you allow whatever is the case to be the case. If there's confusion, if there's pain, allowing that. And an interesting thing happened when I actually allowed that. Insights started emerging for me in a very real way. And I just wanted to put that thought out to you today. What might it be like to allow what is the case to be the case, and to become curious? Whatever emotions are there, to become curious, to explore them and to sit with them. I know both Frederick and Philip have done the Vipassana 10-day silent meditations, where you have to sit with whatever comes up in meditation. That's quite a radical example, but they have to face whatever comes up. You sit with it. And because we don't like to feel bad, we put pressure on ourselves to continuously snap out of it and to do stuff so that we don't have to face whatever we're going through. And so that's the thought I'd like to just leave with you today. Are we able to be curious and to explore and to be aware of what we're going through?
Actually, Sharon, it ties in with one. Last week we spoke about legacy, but I think it was the week before where we spoke about pause, pivot, and practicing purpose. And actually, it's about the pausing and being comfortable and aware and accepting in the pause. Like right now, it feels like we're in quite a big global pause. So yeah, it ties in with allowing what is present. And I think without judgment is the key for me. It's about, well, this is what it is. And there has to be some form of level of acceptance, I guess, to not have a sense of resistance, which can be very depleting and can really make us tired on many levels, physically, mentally, emotionally.
I've noticed also in the world of corporates, because I do a lot of work with HR leaders around the world, and how tempting it is for them to say, now let's navigate a new future. In the meantime, there's death, people have lost people, people have been furloughed, and they lost money. And some people in small businesses, like I know some of you are in small businesses, have lost all your business. And if we don't really allow ourselves to go there, how can we ever pick up the diamonds in the dust and grow through this to become an inspiration to others? Yeah. And Fritz, I'm just thinking about what we went through in South Africa, that time where we started our life dream, which was this wellness center called the Center of Light, Love and Laughter. And it didn't work financially. It went belly up for us. And we lost a good few million. And the process we had to go through, because we were very tempted to just get in the stress loop and start blaming the investor because it didn't work out with the investor. There was a huge clash of vision. And eventually he took our money, put us up against a wall and said, I know you can't get out of this, so I'm going to buy you out at a fraction of what you put in. And eventually he walked away. And what we went through that time was quite revealing, because the first reaction was to become angry and to make him the big devil, you know, the evil one, something to put our blame on, and become more and more bitter and more angry and blame him for what we were going through. And the other thing was, we went into quite a strong stress loop for many months, you know, of worrying about things and not being able to get rid of the stress within the body. And then we decided quite consciously to go to Cape Town for 10 days and to just focus on experiencing this and to explore and to sit with it and to journal. So a lot of journaling, a lot of thinking, a lot of walking in the veld, just exploring what we were going through. And it was during that time that Fritz came up with this idea. He felt God, the creator, speaking to him one day and giving him this image. And this is what inspired this little book, you know, that we wrote, Finding Diamonds in the Dust. It was inspired by that event to say, you know what, you've been looking at the dust and you've been putting the blame out there and becoming more and more bitter and more angry. What might it be like if you just shifted your focus on what the diamonds might be? And then I started asking myself, what's the worst thing that could happen? What's the very worst thing that could happen? And just as I was preparing for today, I opened this little book and just reflected back, because I wrote this, I don't know how long ago, it was many years ago, 15, 20 years ago.
No, it was 2009.
Yeah. And I wrote here, just reflecting back, I wrote here, the most significant breakthrough was the emotion that resulted when we asked ourselves the big question. And the big question was this, because we were about to lose everything, all his pension money, everything. What if this doesn't work out at all? What if we lose everything? What is the very worst thing that can happen here? I had always been too afraid to ask this question, but asking it that day in Cape Town brought a feeling of power and courage. And I started realizing, you know what, we're going to be okay, because we will start over again, because I realized we've got skills and talents and we are able to shape our work. We're able to shape our work beyond this. And we've got a child, we've got our love, we've got our relationship. There's so much that nobody can take away from us. So we've lost money and we've lost a business. But I started realizing that although we may not have any certainty about the future of this project, we are managing to hold on to this inner peace and this joy that comes with a conscious decision to believe in the process of life, to believe in the future, to keep hoping and believing, and to become curious about what might evolve in the future. And that was quite something for me, that inspired this feeling of focusing on the diamonds in the dust. But it did mean that we didn't snap out of it immediately. It did mean a whole process of feeling the pain, noticing it, accepting it, and then seeing what emerges from that experience.
Yeah, I would like to add, I mean, we are so used to fuel our actions with our dreams, with our vision of the future dream, and that we put every day into the tank, you know, to get us going and going and going, and we just realize that this vision is not taking us. And it was such a beautiful vision. It was serving humanity, you know, it was serving everybody. But at a point, as Sharon said, we have to let go of our vision and look at the dust. And it was in the dust that we found the diamonds. And that dream has come and gone. We've lost a lot, but you know, we started again. Sorry, Sharon, I did one.
Yeah, no, that's lovely.
And Ash just made a comment of personal power, and there's, you know, for those of you that know that different emotional states hold different frequencies, and some are energy draining and some are renewing.
Yeah, let me share
And
that picture quickly.
yeah, that's lovely. And this is such phenomenal science that we now can measure, you know, through heart coherence and electromagnetic fields. And this doesn't, and it comes from inside us. So I know, Sharon, that's a message that you wanted to share before we create a breakout room, was how
Yeah,
we can't change what's happening around us, but
yeah.
we have control over inside. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to suggest that emotions, whether they're positive or negative, are like almost little warning bells, like red little lights. So if you have a lot of these emotions that have got a low resonance and energy resonance, like shame, guilt, apathy, fear, anguish, it's almost like a gift. These emotions are a gift for work to be done. It's like a little red flag that goes up to say there's work to be done here, because it opens up a space for you to do the work. They're not pleasant, but it's an opportunity to do the work, to work through, to process, and then to start. I mean, the big realization for me was this one, that there's an inner world and an outer world. And there's all sorts of shit happening on the outer world with this business deal not happening. But what is the inner world? You know, how will I respond to what's happening? And to make that more conscious rather than it happening to you, to consciously allow the confusion, to consciously allow the grief, and to consciously start looking for the diamonds in the dust, and to say, how can I pick up from here? Where to from here? Not why me, Lord, but rather where to from here? You know, what is the next step for me? So I just want to leave those three words with you: awareness, acceptance, and intention. Awareness of what's going on, a full acceptance of it, and not a denial of it, but a full acceptance, and then to set a conscious intention as to where you want to go with this, rather than it controlling you. So Celine, shall we have a smaller group discussion around?
Yeah, and perhaps the question could be, because thank you for sharing your story, and I'm sure all of us have got our own stories of adversity, but right now could be struggles that seem big or small. Yeah, to perhaps share that, but also if you have techniques that you've used that are helping you potentially to manage that. Yeah. And shall we do that for 8 to 10 minutes, I think? Yeah. So I'm going to,
I think 10 minutes, Celine.
okay. There we go. So you'll get a request to go to a breakout room. There we go. Opened out.
On us. I mean, it's to be able to support them in the process. I think that's on us. But if any of us could solve the problem, I would go after that person, you know, and just be with that person, you know, for good. The point is that we think sometimes that we have people that work for us that we have to think for. I mean, I was talking with some of my clients that were so torn inside because they couldn't keep everybody, all their employees with them, you know, and they were torn inside. They were just really, really sad about it. And I am sad about it also. But at the end of the day, you know, life is life. Somebody could lose this job and then produce their own life afterwards in such a way that they can become even more successful than they were when they were with me. So the point to me is like, really, I can support people in going through it, but I cannot solve the problem for them. Because, you know, otherwise I put myself in a place of too much pressure. It's not, you know, it's not, I don't know, if there's a human being that is able to be under that pressure, I will go close to that guy or girl and I'll let them keep my pressure on them, you know. But sometimes we have to, you know, we have to be strong for everybody else around. I think we have to support each other, but we don't have the capacities to solve this problem for others. We have the capacity to stand with others in the problem. And in doing that, everybody grows. Because if I put them on my shoulder, I would feel guilty for them losing something. And in fact, it's not your fault, is what's happening. And I think I would stay very much away from it being my fault for people that work for me if I don't have what to give to them, because that's a very tricky space. And you're not God. I mean, I don't know if anybody believes in God or not, but I think, you know, somebody said there's one thing I know, that there's one God and it's not me, you know, and I'm not God. I mean, I'm not going to be able to carry everybody else's burden. I am able to work with them to find a way, a solution. But you know, if I have to feel guilty if they lose their job, even if they work for me, I think that's not my space. I would kill myself under that space. I don't know if that makes any sense. Oops, there's everybody around. Hello.
Surprise!
I'm sorry if you didn't understand this, but you know, there was a conversation before that. It touches me very deeply because sometimes we think, you know, that we are responsible for other people's life. And in fact, you know, when we pay a salary to somebody, to a certain extent, we are, but we're not their God. We're not who needs to solve all their problems. You know, if we have a problem, we can't feel guilty for not being able to solve their problems. We are all in this together, and I think we can be responsible in it. I can be as much as responsible as I can be, but when I move on to be guilty for their problem, then it's not a burden that I can carry. You know, I wouldn't suggest anybody to carry that burden, to feel guilty for somebody else's, you know, disaster. I'm already, you know, in my own disaster. So just to framework to it.
Yeah, I just want to say, perhaps Heather, you should talk. It was actually Heather that shared this with us, which was actually very, very important. You know, I mean, your business, you are responsible for 40 people. It is in the tourist industry, you know, and things are not going well there. You know, now the question is, I mean, it could take a year. We don't know what is going, how this industry is going, and you feel, you know, for your people, you are there. You need to pay the check at the end of the month.
Yeah, I was just saying that, Sharon, I was listening to what you were saying about, you know, inhabiting it and going with it and almost wallowing in it and seeing where you ended up. I like the idea of that if it was just me, but because I have staff who are furloughed at the moment, who I have to stay in contact with, who I have to start making decisions about, who am I going to make redundant? Am I going to have to make everyone redundant? All these horrible, painful decisions that I'm having to think about, which means that I can't really just sit and see what happens and allow myself to inhabit it. I really do need to be making decisions and trying to move forward. And I suppose for me, resilience is how can I do that in a mindful way? How can I do that in a way that allows me to make the right decision, because I'm allowing myself to take the time to do it, but at the same time not just be paralyzed by it and waiting for a decision to come to me, by inhabiting it. And it's just finding that balance, I think, as well.
Yeah, so go ahead.
I think it's important also to strike the balance between being responsible, taking on the ability to respond on behalf of other people, and reminding myself that it's not my journey. It's not my place to own the future of other people. Yeah. We have a contract, we have a bond, we have sometimes it's a friendship, but ultimately we all have to be masters of our own salvation. And that can sound very harsh sometimes, particularly when I've been on the receiving end of it. It was really scary when somebody said to me, you know, you've got to be master of your own salvation. And part of me went, but can't you do it for me? And ultimately no one can. And there are times when decisions have to be made, but you can only make decisions when you're able to. And it's sitting in that not knowing space until a decision becomes clear, rather than trying to force a decision because we're being told that we need to make decisions.
Okay, no, that's a relevant, that's another interesting way of looking at it, and I find that easier to think of, to not rush into a decision. And I am doing that. There's all sorts of things in theory we could be putting out on social media and talking to people about what we're going to do to keep them safe. I'm not going to do any of that because I don't know yet. I have to be led by government guidance and all these other things. So I do have to just sit and wait, and that is what I'm doing. So it's interesting to hear that actually is, you know, has its merit from a resilience point of view as well. That it's okay to do that. I think I've perhaps been slightly concerned that I should be able to solve this problem, but of course I can't. Nobody can. Thank you.
And what you can do in the meantime is keep some of the fundamentals in place, like I know you do and many of us on the call do, you know, to be able to express emotions in an effective way. And if you can't, find a creative outlet. And if you can't, maybe move your body through dance or exercise like running or walking, spending time in nature, meditation. Yeah. Does anybody else have practical things that they do?
One just came up in our little chat room. If you can't find a friend or don't have a friend that you can talk to without them trying to fix you, then set that as a context, as difficult as it might be. You know, phone someone and say, I really want to download to you, but I know you're very kind and you want to come up with solutions. But what would really work for me in this call is could you just hear me and don't try and snap me out of it? Is that okay? And ask their permission, and then go into saying how you feel. And if they do start to try and come in with solutions, thank them and say, actually, I just need to say what I need to say. And setting that context sometimes can be useful, particularly if you feel in a really low state. Oh, who can I be with? Who can I talk with whilst in this state?
And Sharon, you and I spoke about this when we spoke about this call for this week.
Yes.
And Sharon said, Philip and Carly, Sharon said, why don't we end the call off suggesting that for those of you that don't want to wait a whole week, 6 sleeps to come together in the cafe, that we reach out to one another and have those kind of conversations where we don't need to be fixed and anything's okay. And Sharon, Philip offered to Carly to be that person for her.
Brilliant.
Carly was quite touched by that. So it just is lovely when things happen as they should. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very happy to have any conversations outside of this structured Zoom if anybody feels that I could be a sounding board. Or
Yeah, same with me. I would also like to offer that. I'd love to be there for you. So we've got each other's email addresses. It's all on the invite. So you could just email people and say, would you be up for a chat? I know Davide's got years and years of coaching experience as well, you know, so I don't know, how do you all feel about that?
I'm happy for anyone to email.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I only have one request, that somebody rather send me a WhatsApp message than an email. My emails are like a tsunami. It's on me all the time, and I battle to keep track of all of that. Yeah. So my WhatsApp is a little bit more easy one to work. So if you could share that with somebody, Celine, I'm quite happy if somebody.
You know what, another idea, why don't you'll see if you go to the bottom of your screen, there's a chat function, and you can message people privately. Why don't you do that now? Just reach out to somebody in the group and say, I'd love to have a follow-up call with you. And so and maybe share your phone number or your email address there. Okay,
I'm doing it right now, yeah. Okay.
And Sharon, perhaps, I know we had spoken about, I've done some embodiment coaching, and part of the course that I did 2 years ago, there was these, what they call 26 archetypal postures. So 26 ways that you can hold your body to facilitate a certain state, to feel an emotion, to shift an emotion, or just for a point of inquiry. And the one that I thought of sharing for this call it's called the self-care pose. And the idea, I mean, you could do it right now where you are. Ash, do you know the posture? Oh, just because I saw you went straight for your shoulders. So what you would do is it's almost like giving yourself a hug. So you place your right hand on your left shoulder and your left hand under your arm, or as wide as your arms are comfortably to go. And then you want to soften your gaze and look down towards your right elbow, almost inward. It's quite an inward nurturing posture. And maybe just take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, relax into this, what could also feel like a self-hug. It's meant to be slightly asymmetrical, so allow your head to fall slightly to the side. And there's a whole reason for this. There's a science behind why it's got to be a certain way. And then you would hold this posture, perhaps with a sense of compassion or love, or simply saying to yourself, it's okay. It's okay. Sure. Yo, I didn't expect that. I just had a wave of emotion come up. It's quite powerful. And you can hold the posture for, the recommendation is at least a minute. And then longer if you feel emotion that needs to come through. And what I'll do is I'll send a link to the self posture done by Mark Walsh. Oh, okay, I'm gonna come out of that. Oh, that was a nice piece of information. I was feeling quite chirpy. So yeah, I'll send a link to that by email, and that could be a point of inquiry for you as well. The body's a beautiful tool that can help us when we're feeling quite stuck in our heads and we're not sure how to shift our emotions, because that takes a lot of effort. Whereas holding a posture could perhaps be something more tangible and easy to access.
Yes, I see there's lots of wonderful offers coming through on the chat box. So please do take each other up on that. And if there's anybody in the group that you feel would be good for you to have a conversation with, please do reach out, you know. And I really think the message of today is support, emotional support. That I mean, and the message is clear that we're responsible for our own selves, and we are there to support each other, but we can't take ownership for everybody's journey. We can only take ownership for our own journey, and we can be there for others. And obviously, the more torn up you are, and the less you are of yourself, the less there is to give to others anyway. You know, so we have to be responsible to our own well-being first before we can be there for others. So that was really great. Thanks so much to all the deep sharing and connection. I think this group is becoming very special, certainly to me. And I really look forward to these moments of connection with you on a Thursday lunchtime.
Yeah, and thank you, Heather, for joining us. And Chantel.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you for allowing me to join you.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
And it's not a closed shop, so to speak. So in fact, Sharon and I just committed to the end of July. So every Thursday at this time. And like we did last week, you know, Jim took the lead with Anna, and we had a lovely legacy conversation. If there's anybody here who feels that you have a topic that you'd like to bring to the cafe, we can create a conversation around that and share the wisdom together.
Thank you.
Especially in 2 weeks' time, because I know that Sharon will be on her own, because I'm actually earning money that day. Yay! Working for Canadians.
So that's the best combination.
Yeah. And Chantal, we hope that you sort out your connectivity problems, you know, and to see your face again.
Thank you, Fritz. I will certainly do that before next Thursday.
Yeah, okay.
Lynn, I'd like to, can I just, I've got a poem I want to read. It's about 6 lines.
Yeah.
Please.
So it just came to me. It's one I use on a handout about listening. And it's a poem about listening. When I ask, just close your eyes if you want to, just listen to this. When I ask you to listen to me and you start giving advice, you have not done what I asked. When I ask you to listen to me and you begin to tell me why I shouldn't feel that way, you're trampling on my feelings. When I ask you to listen to me and you feel you have to do something to solve my problem, you've failed me, strange as that may seem. Perhaps that is why prayer works for some people, because God is mute and doesn't offer advice or try to fix things. God just listens and trusts you to work it out for yourself. So please just listen and hear me. And if you want to talk, wait a few minutes for your turn. And I promise I will listen to you too.
Thank you, Philip. That is absolutely spot on for me.
Would you share the poem with me, Philip? And then I can share it in the thank you note with the link to the posture.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, really.
Thank you.
It's like we don't want to leave this call.
Well, I'll
Why
say
is it only 45 minutes?
you know, the organizer in me, the earth element, is very much like, right, we're finished for those that want to go and need to go, but the cafe will stay open for those that want to linger longer.
Okay, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank